Zuberi screamed. But the sound that tore out of his throat was not human. The ritual symbol beneath his hand exploded into violent red light. The storm above Alien Academy answered instantly, thunder crashing so hard the underground chamber trembled. His fingers tried to pull away. They wouldn't move. The symbol wasn't glowing anymore. It was breathing. Each carved line pulsed like a living vein beneath his skin. Dark ink spread across his palm, crawling up his wrist like something claiming territory. Amora stumbled backward. "Headmaster, stop this," she shouted. But Headmaster Maleko did not move. He was watching. Studying. Waiting. The other students dropped to their knees as a low vibration rolled through the chamber. The carved faces on the stone walls began shifting, their hollow eyes widening. They were not decorations. They were witnesses. Suddenly, Jelani's lifeless body jerked midair. His head snapped toward Zuberi with unnatural force. And then he spoke. "The vessel is open." The lantern flames turned violet. The air grew heavy, thick like water filling lungs. Zuberi gasped as something forced its way into him, not violently, but deliberately. Like it had been waiting centuries for this exact moment. Memories crashed into his mind. Ancient ceremonies. Students kneeling in blood-stained uniforms. A headmaster older than Maleko. And something darker standing behind him, faceless, watching. Zuberi collapsed. But when he lifted his head again, one eye remained his own. The other burned faint crimson. "I can hear them," he whispered. The chamber fell silent. Because this was never about survival. Part 1 was a test. Part 2 was succession. And for the first time since the ritual began generations ago, Headmaster Maleko looked afraid. The crimson glow in Zuberi's eye flickered. Then stabilized. Silence spread across the chamber, heavy, suffocating silence. Headmaster Maleko slowly removed his glasses and cleaned them with calm precision. "Good," he whispered. "Very good." Zuberi's breathing steadied. Too steady. Amora crawled toward him. "Zuberi, fight it. Don't let it control you." Zuberi turned his head toward her. And smiled. Not the twisted smile of possession. Not the hollow look of someone lost. A calm smile. "I'm not being controlled," he said softly. His normal voice. That's what made it worse. Maleko's eyes narrowed. "Tell me," the headmaster said carefully. "What do you see?" Zuberi stood slowly. The ritual markings on the floor dimmed, almost respectfully. "I see the truth," Zuberi replied. "I see that this ritual doesn't choose a vessel. The chamber temperature dropped. It chooses a replacement." The other students looked confused. Maleko did not. For the first time, tension cracked through his calm expression. "You misunderstand," Maleko said sharply. Zuberi tilted his head. "No, you misunderstood." Suddenly, the ghostly faces carved into the walls shifted direction. They were no longer looking at Zuberi. They were looking at Maleko. A low whisper filled the chamber, not chanting now, but murmuring. Judging. Maleko stepped back slightly. "You are not ready," he said coldly. "The ritual requires obedience." Zuberi laughed softly. "The ritual requires fear." He took a slow step forward. Every headmaster before you believed they controlled it. They thought they were guiding the stronger student. Amora's heartbeat thundered in her ears. "What are you saying?" she whispered. Zuberi's crimson eye glowed brighter. "I'm saying the ritual feeds on ambition." His gaze locked onto Maleko. "And yours is stronger than anyone's." The air shifted. The black smoke that once surrounded Zuberi slowly drifted away from him and began circling Maleko instead. The headmaster's comb finally cracked. "You are a student," he hissed. "You are nothing without this academy." Zuberi's smile faded. "No," he said quietly. "This academy is nothing without me." The walls trembled. The chanting grew louder, but this time the rhythm changed. It was no longer welcoming. It was choosing. Maleko tried to step toward the ritual symbol, but the floor beneath him darkened. The same living ink that trapped Zuberi earlier began crawling toward the headmaster's shoes. And for the first time in decades, Headmaster Maleko felt what every chosen student once felt: helplessness. The ritual had never needed a vessel. It needed a successor. And succession requires sacrifice. The chamber lights shattered in a burst of sparks. Darkness swallowed everything. And in that darkness, someone screamed. The scream did not belong to Maleko. It did not belong to Zuberi. It came from the walls. The carved faces split open. Cracks spread through the stone like veins breaking under pressure. From inside the walls, a deep rumbling voice emerged, not loud, but ancient and disappointed. "Children." The word echoed unnaturally, stretching through the chamber like smoke. Maleko froze. Zuberi's crimson eye flickered violently. The black mist circling Maleko stopped, then reversed direction. It rose higher, toward the ceiling. The stone above them began to collapse inward, not falling, but folding, as if reality itself were peeling back. Amora grabbed the nearest pillar to steady herself. "What is happening?" she cried. Maleko whispered something under his breath. "A prayer." That's when Zuberi understood. His breathing changed again. Not steady. Not possessed. Afraid. "This isn't the ritual," he murmured. "No," Maleko replied weakly. A massive shadow began forming above them, not attached to anybody. It had no clear shape, only depth. Like staring into a hole where light refused to exist. The temperature plummeted. Frost crept across the ritual symbol. "You both assumed control," the voice continued. "You both assumed succession." The shadow lowered slightly. "And neither of you asked who built the throne." Memories crashed into Zuberi's mind again, but these were older. Before the academy. Before Maleko. Before the first chosen student. He saw the land where the school now stood, barren, silent. Then he saw something buried beneath it. Not a body. A presence. Ancient. Waiting. Maleko dropped to one knee. "We served you," he whispered desperately. "For generations." "You fed me," the voice corrected. The shadow stretched outward like wings made of void. The smartest were never chosen for leadership. The ritual symbol began glowing again, but this time black. They were chosen to strengthen the seal. Amora's heart stopped. "Seal," she breathed. Zuberi's crimson eye went dark. Completely dark. Realization dawned in his face. "This academy," he whispered, "is a prison." The chamber shook violently. The walls no longer looked carved. They looked layered, like something enormous was pressing from the other side. "You mistook hunger for inheritance," the entity said. Maleko tried to stand. The floor swallowed his shadow first. Then his feet. He screamed as darkness wrapped around his legs like liquid chains. "You promised control," he shouted. "I promised survival." The entity's voice deepened. "And the seal is weakening." The students began crying. The lantern flames extinguished one by one. Zuberi looked at Amara. This was never about replacing him, he said quietly. It was about replacing the lock. The shadow descended fully now. Not attacking. Assessing. Choosing. And this time, it was not looking at Zuberi. It was looking at Amara. The darkness did not move toward Amara violently. It drifted. Slow. Curious. Like it was studying her. Zuberi tried to stand, but invisible pressure forced him back to his knees. Leave her, he growled. The entity ignored him. Amara felt the air tighten around her throat, not choking, just holding. You were not marked, the ancient voice said softly. You were overlooked. Maleko was half swallowed by shadow now, his torso still visible, arms reaching desperately. Don't listen to it, he screamed. The entity's presence paused. She sees clearly, it continued. She fears, but she does not crave power. Amara's breathing trembled. What do you want? She whispered. The chamber fell silent again. Then the answer came. Freedom. The word shook the academy's foundations. Zuberi's eyes widened. You said this place is a prison, he said carefully. So break out. A low, almost amused vibration filled the room. The seal requires consent. Everything stopped. Even Maleko's struggling paused. Amara's stomach dropped. Consent, she repeated. For centuries, the entity continued, ambitious minds were shaped into locks. They accepted the ritual believing it gave them power. Zuberi clenched his fist. It fed you. Yes. The shadow tightened around Maleko's chest. He served willingly. Maleko screamed again, but weaker now. The entity shifted toward Amara fully. You, however, were never meant to be chosen. Her heart pounded violently. That is why you are perfect. The ritual symbol beneath them split in half. A deep crack formed through the chamber floor, revealing a swirling void beneath. If you accept, the entity said calmly, the seal would dissolve. The academy would collapse. The prison would open. And it would be free. And if I refuse? Amara asked. The shadow paused once. Then the seal will be repaired. The black smoke slowly returned toward Zuberi. He will remain the lock. Zuberi looked at her. He's human. I was back. Fully human now. Don't, he said softly. The chamber trembled harder. Stone dust rained from the ceiling. Choose, the entity commanded. Maleko, half consumed, whispered one last desperate lie. It would destroy the world. The entity's voice cut through him instantly. I will simply reclaim it. Amara closed her eyes. She could feel it now. The truth. The academy wasn't protecting the world. It was delaying something inevitable. And every generation of smartest students were sacrificed to maintain fear-based control. Zuberi reached toward her. Whatever you decide, he said quietly. Decide for yourself. The shadow extended one final tendril toward her hand. Waiting. Not forcing. Waiting. And the storm above the academy reached its loudest roar. The tendril of darkness hovered inches from Amara's hand. The void beneath the cracked floor churned violently. Choose, the entity repeated. Maleko was barely visible now, only his face above the shadow, eyes wide with terror. Zuberi struggled against the invisible pressure holding him down. Amara, he shouted. Don't let it trick you. She opened her eyes slowly. And stepped forward. The tendril brushed her fingers. Cold. Ancient. Hungry. For a moment, the chamber stilled, waiting for her acceptance. I won't free you, she said calmly. The shadow tightened slightly. I won't seal you either. The entity paused. For the first time since it revealed itself, it hesitated. That is not an option. Amora's voice steadied. You said the seal requires consent. Yes. And it requires ambition. Silence. Zuberi understood first. His eyes widened. Amora, what are you doing? She turned toward the ritual symbol, now split open and unstable. You survived on fear and hunger, she said to the entity. On students who wanted power. On headmasters who craved control. The shadow paused darker. You misunderstand your position. No, she replied. I understand it perfectly. Then she did something no student had ever done. She stepped onto the broken ritual symbol, not as a chosen vessel, but as a disruptor. The carvings reacted violently under her feet, glowing unstable white instead of red or black. The entity's voice deepened. Stop. Maleko's final scream was cut off as he disappeared completely into shadow. Gone. Not chosen. Consumed. Zuberi felt the pressure on his body release slightly. What are you doing? He demanded. Amora looked down at the swirling void beneath the crack. You need consent, she whispered to the darkness. You need someone to believe in your power. The chamber shook violently as cracks spread through the ceiling. And I don't. The words hit like a weapon. The shadow recoiled. The ritual markings began unraveling, not strengthening, not breaking outward. Collapsing inward. You cannot deny existence, the entity thundered. Amora knelt and pressed both palms flat against the symbol. I'm not denying you. She closed her eyes. I'm refusing to feed you. The white light spread through the carvings like wildfire, erasing lines, distorting symbols, corrupting the ritual structure. The void beneath them shrank slightly. The entity's voice fractured, no longer ancient and calm. Angry. Desperate. You will all fall with this structure. Zuberi staggered to his feet. Then we fall, he said. The remaining students grabbed each other as the chamber began collapsing inward. The academy above groaned, walls cracking, windows shattering as the storm reached a violent peak. The shadow shrank rapidly now, compressing back into the crack beneath the floor. This is not an ending, it roared. Amora pressed harder against the glowing symbol. It doesn't have to be, she whispered. The white light surged upward in a blinding flash. The ritual shattered completely. The crack in the earth sealed, not with a lock, but with silence. The storm above stopped instantly. Total stillness. Dust settled through the ruined chamber. The shadow was gone. The ritual symbol was erased. And the underground hall was nothing more than broken stone. Zuberi slowly approached Amora. Her hands were burned slightly from the energy. But her eyes were clear. Fully human. It's over, one student whispered. Amora looked around at the destroyed chamber. No, she said quietly. It's finished. Above them, the academy structure continued to crumble, no longer a prison. Just a building. And somewhere far beneath the earth, something ancient felt something it had not felt in centuries. Hunger. Without supply. The ruins of Alien Academy were cleared within weeks. The official report called it structural collapse caused by underground erosion. No bodies were found. No ritual chamber was ever discovered. The land was declared unsafe. And forgotten. 6 months later. A temporary school operated in a nearby town. Zuberi sat near the window, quieter than before. The crimson glow never returned, but sometimes, in deep silence, he swore he could hear something faint beneath the earth. Not a voice. A pressure. Amora avoided the news entirely. She refused interviews. Refused questions. Refused to explain why every clock in the academy had stopped at the exact same second the storm ended. 11:47 p.m. Every single one. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the classroom windows, a new student joined midterm. Quiet girl. Transferred from another state. No records from her previous school could be confirmed. She chose the seat in the very back. During mathematics class, the teacher paused mid-sentence. For a brief moment, the lights flickered. Just once. Zuberi felt it immediately. Not fear. Not possession. Recognition. He slowly turned around. The new girl was staring directly at him. Calm. Studying him the way something ancient studies a lock. Then she smiled. Not cruel. Not kind. Just knowing. On her wrist, barely visible beneath her sleeve. A faint white marking. Not the old ritual symbol. Something simpler. Smaller. Evolving. Amora felt it too. A subtle vibration beneath her palms resting on the desk. Not hunger. Not power. But patience. The storm that night was gentle. But deep beneath the earth, far below broken stone and sealed cracks, something shifted. Not trapped. Not free. Waiting. Learning. Because prisons built on fear collapse. But ideas adapt. And this time, it wouldn't need an academy. If this story gave you chills, then you're not ready for what's coming next. Subscribe and don't look away. Because some rituals don't end when the story does.